Have you ever felt like you were just the backup kid in your own family? Like no matter how hard you tried, you were always living in someone else's shadow? This is my story of growing up invisible, overlooked, and undervalued until I finally decided to break free. Hi, I'm not really the type to share personal stuff, but I need to get this off my chest. Maybe it'll help someone, or maybe it'll just help me. Either way, here goes. I grew up in a house where everything, and I mean everything, revolved around my older brother, Nathan. He was the golden child. Always praised. Always celebrated. Even when he messed up, my parents would twist reality to make it sound like he was just unlucky or trying really hard. If he got a C, it was because the teacher was unfair. If I got an A+, it was silence. Sometimes a nod, sometimes nothing. Once, when I showed my report card with straight A's, my dad literally said, "Well, Nathan had more difficult subjects, you know. He also had football practice." As if I wasn't juggling school, part-time responsibilities, and helping around the house. Birthdays? Nathan got what he asked for. Always. A new console, a fancy bike, name it. Me? I got weird stuff I never wanted. Like once I asked for a sketch tablet because I liked to draw, and I got a knockoff radio shaped like a dinosaur. I remember being quiet about it, but my face must have said enough because Mom called me ungrateful in front of everyone. That stung. After that, I just stopped asking for anything. Pocket money. Nathan got bonuses for showing up to class. I could pull off honors and still got told, "You should study for the knowledge, not for the reward." I didn't argue. I just learned not to expect anything. But that favoritism didn't stop at material things. It shaped everything. Who we were allowed to be. Nathan was the sunny, outgoing kid, the kind who threw parties, had friends over, stayed out late. Me? I was the quiet one. I stayed in, read, played games, studied. I didn't have many friends because my parents didn't let me bring anyone home. "Don't bring strangers into our house," Mom said. Meanwhile, Nathan threw weekend hangouts in our living room, and they helped him set up snacks. It wasn't even subtle. Nathan himself started believing it. He'd say things like, "Well, maybe you'd get treated better if you weren't such a loser," with this smug little smirk. Sometimes he'd joke about how I was probably adopted or that I was the trial version and he was the real deal. And I swallowed it. All of it. Year after year. By the time we were both older, I had fully accepted my place. Nathan was the star. I was the supporting cast. I kept my head down and worked hard, because what else could I do? Then came college. Nathan, of course, had it all lined up. My parents paid for everything. Tuition, books, housing in another city, even some of his living expenses, which, judging by his social media, included weekend getaways and bar tabs. They said, "Nathan needs to focus on his studies. We don't want him worrying about money." Which was funny, considering he was barely passing and switching majors like socks. When it came time for me to go to college, I was cautiously optimistic. I thought, maybe they'll help a little. Instead, I got, "John, we already spent most of our savings on Nathan's education. You'll have to figure out the rest yourself." They offered to cover part of my tuition if I stayed local and lived at home, so we don't waste money on rent. That was their exact phrase. So I worked. I picked a college in our city, commuted, and picked up shifts wherever I could, bookstore, delivery apps, tutoring. I juggled everything, and I never complained. Not because it didn't suck, but because I'd grown up knowing no one would listen anyway. Here's the irony. I did well. Really well. I had spent years with my nose in books, learning to think critically, solve problems, manage time. When I graduated, I got a solid offer from a reputable company as a business analyst. My starting salary was better than Nathan's even after 2 years in the workforce. Did my parents acknowledge it? Nope. Not even a congratulations dinner. I don't think they even knew the name of the company I worked for. Meanwhile, Nathan had just lost another job, and they were comforting him with homemade pie and Dad's old motivational speeches. That was when I realized this wasn't going to change. So I moved out. I got my own tiny apartment, far from luxurious, but it was mine. Quiet, peaceful. No constant comparison, no snide remarks. No, why can't you be more like Nathan? It was the first time I could actually breathe. Life finally started to feel like it was mine. I had a steady job, my own space, and even saved a little. But just when I began to think I could live without being dragged back into the Nathan show, the universe said, "Not yet." Nathan met Sarah. She looked like someone trying out for a reality show, always overdressed, always posing, always performing. Don't get me wrong, she was attractive, in that cover of a fashion catalog way. But her attitude? Like the world owed her something for existing. She was cold, dismissive, and clearly saw Nathan as her ticket to the lifestyle she imagined she deserved. And Nathan? He lapped it up like a thirsty puppy. She's special, he said. She's going to do big things. I guess modeling editions and one-off brand promo shoots counted as big things. But mostly, Sarah stayed home and waited for the world to notice her brilliance. Soon, they announced their wedding. I wasn't even told directly. Aunt Megan casually asked me if I was going to Nathan's wedding, and I was like, what wedding? That was the first I'd heard of it. Turns out, I was an afterthought. My parents scrambled to invite me so it wouldn't look bad. They shoved me in at the last minute, and when I got to the reception, my seat was literally at a tiny table in the corner with two random kids. I thought it was a mistake. It wasn't. I asked my parents what was going on. They brushed me off like I was a stranger asking for directions. I approached Sarah to clarify. She didn't even blink. Just said, "That's your spot," and walked off. Cold. Like I was staff, not family. But that wasn't even the worst part. Before the wedding, my parents came to me asking for help. It's been a tough year. We're stretched thin. Could you help cover some costs? They had paid for part of the venue, helped with the catering, and even chipped in for Sarah's designer dress. They made it sound like it was for family, like it was a one-time thing. I caved. Again. And what did I get in return? Not a single thank you. Not even a nod. Just this gem from my mom. Nathan always helped you growing up. He set such a good example. That was the moment something started to crack inside me. I had paid, supported, and sacrificed again. And still, I was invisible. Just when I thought the wedding disaster was behind me, my parents came knocking again. This time, it was about the gift. Apparently, they'd decided what I should buy for Nathan and Sarah. Not suggest, decided. It was a top-of-the-line espresso machine with all the bells and whistles. Something flashy, expensive, and way beyond the budget of a normal wedding gift. When I hesitated, because, I had rent, bills, my own life to think about, they launched into the usual guilt trip. You have a good job now, John. You can afford it. He's your brother. This is what family does. But when Nathan was doing fine and I was struggling through college, I guess family didn't do that then. Still, I gave in. Again, I bought the gift. I attended the wedding. I sat in that damn corner seat with the kids. I watched them parade around the room like royalty. Sarah smiling like the whole world was her stage. Nathan grinning beside her like he'd won a prize. And I sat there, thinking how I had paid for this fantasy, and not even the people closest to me could be bothered to acknowledge it. Nobody came to my table. Nobody toasted me or thanked me or even noticed me. It was like I was a guest at some stranger's wedding. And yet, I stayed quiet. I didn't want to make a scene. I didn't want to ruin the day. That's what we're taught, right? Don't speak up. Don't stir the pot. Just take it and smile. So I did. But something in me shifted. Not suddenly, but deeply. I left that wedding more certain than ever that I was done being their afterthought. They could only take from me for so long. A little over a month after the wedding, the phone rang again. It was my mom. Her voice was rushed and breathless, but not from emotion. Just the usual panic when something didn't go her way. "John, we're behind on the loan payment. Nathan's had some setbacks and, well, we were hoping you could help. Just for this month." I didn't even need to ask. I already knew what setbacks meant. Nathan ran out of money again, and his lifestyle sure as hell wasn't adjusting to reality. And Sarah? Still not working. Still waiting for the world to realize she was born for stardom. I should have said no. Every part of me wanted to say no. But then came the same old lines. "We raised you. We helped you with your studies. You're doing well now. You should be grateful." It was like a well-rehearsed script. And stupidly, I gave in again. I transferred the money, told myself it was the last time, and tried to move on. It wasn't the last time. The next month, another unexpected bill. Then the water heater broke. Then Sarah needs some medical checkups. Then Nathan's job isn't paying as much. Then we might lose the apartment if we don't catch up on the mortgage. I lost count. The amounts got bigger. The asks became bolder. Every time I brought up how unfair this all was, how Nathan should be contributing too, I was hit with, "Nathan has a family now. It's harder for him. You're alone, You don't have those responsibilities. Right. Because I never got to have those things. I was too busy keeping everyone else afloat. It wasn't about helping anymore. It was about expectation, obligation. I wasn't a son to them anymore. I was a safety net, a living, breathing wallet. But I didn't push back. Not yet. That came later. This financial leeching went on for nearly 2 years. 2 years. Every month, it was something new. Mortgage shortfalls, medical bills, car repairs, Sarah's essential expenses, which somehow included spa days and a designer handbag once, and always followed by a quiet, sad call from my parents. You know, Nathan deserves better than to be struggling like this. Sarah is trying her best. She just hasn't been discovered yet. We wouldn't ask if we had another choice. But that was the thing. They did have a choice. They could have said no to Nathan, told him to get a second job, told Sarah to find work, cut back on the luxury lifestyle they couldn't afford. But they didn't, because I was the backup plan, the invisible son who wouldn't make noise, the one who had no family of his own, no wife, no kids, so my time and money were available. I tried to talk to them. I tried to explain that I was falling behind on my goals, that I still lived in a rental, that I wanted to buy a place, save for my future, maybe even travel or take a sabbatical to study abroad like I once dreamed. They didn't hear any of it. All they heard was, "You're abandoning your family, after everything we did for you. So Nathan has to suffer while you live easy?" Easy. They thought my life was easy, just because I didn't complain, just because I wasn't sinking visibly. But the truth was, I was drowning too, just quietly. I was emotionally drained, financially limited, and carrying people who didn't even pretend to care. The final straw came one night at a family gathering. I wasn't planning to go, but Aunt Megan begged me to drop by. I figured, fine, an hour and I'm out. And that's when I heard it. One of my cousins mentioned, so casually, that my parents were still covering Nathan's mortgage entirely. "Yeah, they've been helping him since the wedding," she said. "Didn't you know? They said they didn't want Nathan and Sarah to worry about money." I laughed, out loud, for the first time in months. Because that was it. The confirmation. The truth I had always suspected, laid bare. I had been paying my own bills and helping cover theirs, while they secretly kept Nathan's life wrapped in gold. And that's when I knew. Enough. I left that family gathering early. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't make a scene. I just walked out like a ghost and drove in silence, gripping the wheel like it was the only thing keeping me from falling apart. When I got home, I sat on the couch in the dark. No music, no TV, just my thoughts. The rage wasn't loud. It was quiet, focused, like the kind of calm you feel right before a storm breaks loose. I thought about all those nights I stayed up working 2 jobs just to cover tuition. All the birthdays I spent alone. All the times I walked into a room and felt like a visitor in my own family. I thought about how I was told to understand, to be grateful, to help out, and how it was never reciprocated. That night, something inside me crystallized into a decision. No more phone calls. No more emergency transfers. No more guilt tripping me into fixing their mess. I wasn't going to warn them. I was just going to act. So, I logged into every platform where my money was tied to theirs. Bank auto transfers, shared accounts I'd used to pay utilities for their house, even the backup credit card they only used in emergencies. I pulled it all. Canceled, disconnected, deactivated. I closed the emergency fund I kept in case they really needed it. And then, I blocked their numbers. That was the first night I slept through the night in years. The peace was so unfamiliar, I actually woke up confused. At first, it was quiet. A few days passed. I figured maybe they hadn't noticed yet, or maybe they assumed it was a tech glitch. But then the calls started. First from my mom, then from my dad, then Nathan. Voicemails, texts, emails. "John, the mortgage bounced. What happened? Hey, I think there's something wrong with the utility account. Son, call us back. We need to talk. This is serious. John, this isn't funny. Nathan's getting late notices. John, call me now." But I didn't. I ignored it all. I watched the storm roll in from a safe distance. For the first time in my life, I let them scramble. Then the tone shifted. The guilt came pouring in. "We raised you. We sacrificed so much for you. Nathan always supported you growing up. Sarah is devastated. This is tearing the family apart. Is money more important to you than your own blood?" Still, I said nothing. I had spent my entire life being the good son, the one who showed up. The one who gave more than he had. And what did it ever get me? A chair in the corner. A list of demands. A hollow thank you, if that. And the constant, unshakable feeling that I was nothing more than a backup plan for someone else's spotlight. So I let the silence speak for me. That's when they came to my apartment. I don't know why I wasn't surprised to hear the loud knocking that Saturday morning. Maybe I expected it. Maybe a part of me even welcomed it, like I finally wanted them to see what they'd turn me into. I opened the door, and there they were. Mom first, red-faced, breathless, emotional. Dad, stiff and quiet, clearly ready to let her do all the talking. And behind them, Nathan, hands in his pockets, trying to look calm, but his jaw was tight. No Sarah, thankfully. I wasn't ready for that level of fake politeness. Before I could even say hello, Mom launched into it. John, how could you? What are we supposed to do? Do you have any idea what kind of trouble we're in? I stood there, calm, arms crossed. Dad added, this isn't the time to be selfish. We're family. Nathan? He just smirked, like he couldn't believe I was being so dramatic. Is this about the wedding? Dude, get over it. That was months ago. That pushed me. But I didn't yell. I didn't lose control. I just stepped aside, let them in, and pointed at the couch. Sit, I said. I'll explain everything. And for the next 15 minutes, I did. I laid it all out. Every grudge, every slight, every moment I was overlooked, belittled, ignored. I told them about the resentment, the emotional exhaustion, the years of feeling like I wasn't part of the family, just a fallback. I told them how it felt to be treated like an afterthought, yet still be expected to sacrifice like a saint. I watched their faces shift. Dad stared at the floor. Mom's lip trembled, like she wanted to cry but couldn't decide whether it was from guilt or fury. Nathan looked, annoyed, like I was wasting his time. When I finished, I said this. I am done paying for Nathan's life. I'm done being your second son. I'm done saving everyone while no one saves me. You need money? Asked the favorite. Nathan stood up. You've always been bitter, he said. This is why no one respects you. And I looked him dead in the eye and replied, no, this is why no one respects you. They're just too afraid to say it. Then I opened the door and asked them to leave. And they did. After they left, I expected to feel shaky, regretful, maybe guilty, but I didn't. I felt free. No more middle-of-the-night bank transfers. No more panicked phone calls or forced family dinners where I sat like a placeholder. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't waiting for approval that would never come. Of course, the fallout was immediate. They tried calling again. I blocked their numbers. Then came the emails, some full of rage, others full of guilt, most just a mess of both. Then messages from extended family. They're your parents, John. You can't just abandon them. Nathan's on the brink of losing his apartment. How can you live with yourself? Your mother's been crying nonstop. But you know what? I didn't reply to a single one. I wasn't abandoning them. I had never been with them in the first place. Not really. I had been orbiting them, supporting them, funding them. But they had never once supported me. What I felt wasn't guilt. It was the realization that I had been lied to my entire life. Not just by them, but by the idea they fed me. That if I just worked harder, was more patient, more giving, more obedient, then maybe I'd be loved like Nathan. But love based on sacrifice isn't love. It's leverage. And they had finally run out of mine. That weekend, I did something wild. I booked a solo trip. A couple of picturesque cities I'd always wanted to see, but never could, because I was always saving money, just in case someone needed it. And this time, the only person who needed anything was me. That trip was a turning point. For the first time, I traveled without anyone else's expectations. No one to call me back for a family emergency. No texts asking for money or reminding me how family helps family. Just me, my thoughts, and some truly breathtaking places. I walked through old towns, wandered museums, sat in cafes watching people live lives I'd always dreamed of having. I learned to enjoy silence without feeling lonely. I started writing again, a hobby I'd abandoned years ago because I never had the time or energy. I met new people, some fellow travelers, some locals. I even made a few friends who didn't know me as Nathan's brother or the quiet son who always helps. I realized how much I'd been defined by my family's shadow and how little I'd actually lived for myself. And while part of me still carried the pain, the weight of years of neglect and favoritism, I also found something else. Hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, my story wasn't over. that I could build a life on my terms. One where I mattered for who I was, not who I was compared to. After that trip, I took some time to reflect on everything. What did I really learn from all this? First, that love from family shouldn't come with conditions or comparisons. It shouldn't be a competition where one sibling is always better or more deserving. Second, that people don't change unless they want to. My parents, Nathan, and even Sarah, they all had their roles, their patterns. I can't fix them or make them see the truth if they aren't willing. Third, that boundaries are not betrayal. Saying no doesn't make me a bad son or a bad brother. It makes me human. And lastly, that self-worth can't be borrowed or inherited. I had to claim mine on my own, outside their approval or rejection. I'm still processing all of this, but I'm proud of myself for finally breaking free from the family dynamics, the guilt, the endless cycle. It wasn't easy. Sometimes it still hurts. But I'm learning to put myself first without shame. Now that I'm back home, I'm focusing on building my life on my own terms. I'm saving money for a place of my own, not a hand-me-down or a borrowed space. I'm reconnecting with old friends and making new ones who value me for me. I'm investing in my career, taking courses, and even considering going back to school for a master's degree, something I never dared to dream about when I was drowning in family drama. I'm learning to say no, not just to my family, but to anything that drains me emotionally or mentally. And most importantly, I'm learning to celebrate my wins, no matter how small. This isn't about revenge or proving anything to my family anymore. It's about reclaiming my happiness and peace. I've come to accept that my family might never change. Nathan might never take responsibility, and my parents might never see me as anything other than the other son. That's okay, because I've realized that sometimes the family you're born into isn't the family that truly supports you. Sometimes you have to build your own. I'm not closing the door on them completely. Maybe one day they'll understand. But I'm done waiting for that day. Instead, I'm opening doors for myself. I'm choosing who to let in, who to trust, and where to invest my time and energy. For the first time, I feel like I'm writing my own story, not just a footnote in someone else's. So, where do I go from here? I'm focusing on me, my career, my passions, my happiness. I'm planning to keep traveling when I can, exploring places that inspire me and make me feel alive. I'm considering therapy to unpack years of emotional neglect and learn to trust myself and others again. I'm setting goals that aren't about competing with Nathan or trying to live up to my parents' impossible standards. They're my goals now. Most importantly, I'm learning that sometimes love means walking away from toxic relationships to protect your own well-being. I hope by sharing this, anyone else feeling invisible or undervalued in their own family knows they're not alone, and that it's okay to put yourself first.